Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Central. This morning for the next 2 hours, we're going to be discussing some of the biggest stories here in Nigeria. I am Emodi and very delighted to have us joined for the very first time on Breakfast Central is my co-host. Hello.
Well, thank you very much, Olive. It's very good to be reunited with you on this desk again.
It is
once
indeed
more.
very good.
Yeah, a good one. I'm looking forward to a great show this morning.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for the welcome.
All right, we have Mazino who's joining us, and also we'll be joined later to talk about the breakfast headlines by Judith, who will share with us what the big stories are. But there's so many stories, Mazino, that have, of course, made the news. I think the one that piques my interest the most very recently would be the kidnap, or rather, the release of the 137 children. We had our correspondent Marvelous Obumanu joining us and bringing us updates from Kaduna. And one of the things that really didn't sit down, well with us was the fact that at the time that these kids were received, their parents were not there to receive them. And it made it look staged and sketchy, because why would these children have been released and for days they hadn't been reunited with their parents? Why did the numbers drop from 287 to 137? What happened to the remaining 150?
Well, there is a certain lack of information regarding how these kids were received, why they weren't let to go straight to their parents, or why the procedures that are involved. But in any case, one thing that I found a bit kind of like disturbing was the fact that the press was also not really giving all the information. We're still asking questions regarding exactly how they were released. Not letting them speak to news, the press, it was another thing. Are they hiding anything? That's the question on everybody's minds now. What could these kids possibly tell us regarding the way they were rescued? All of that is still kind of like fuzzy, all that information. Maybe as the day goes on, or as the days go on, we'll get to find out exactly how they were released and why these informations are being kept away from the public.
My heart really goes out to every parent whose child is one of the kidnapped children. I mean, the one thing that comes to mind is people would ask, are these the children that were kidnapped? If they were the children, like who was there to ID them? Their parents should have been on ground to ID them. My heart also goes out to them because I shudder to think of what they would have gone through while in detention. I shudder to think of, because the people who kidnap them are not humans. They're not people with a kind heart. If they were, they wouldn't have thought of going after the softest targets in the first place. So I can't imagine the amount of abuse some of them might have had to go through, the psychological trauma. There's also the fears of brainwashing. It's why we see that there's something called Stockholm Syndrome, where people are in captivity and after a while they start to fall in love with their captors. So it's a lot of areas that need to be looked at, and it's very heartbreaking.
Well, hopefully they didn't spend that long with their captors. That might not happen.
I can't confirm this, but I did hear a report that all you need is 3 days to be able to brainwash someone into thinking differently. I'd need to do more research on that.
I wonder how many days I have with you to brainwash you into thinking other things, but we'll find out. But in any case, I think what we should do currently is actually celebrate the fact that they have been reunited with their families. So let's give that one a round of applause.
Absolutely.
We thank God for
that.
Well, and also
until I'd love to hear what happened, really. I just feel like I was very excited about the fact that they were brought back. I'm not very excited about giving them a round of applause yet until we know what the full picture is, until we know why it was 287 at first and 137 now. But I mean, these are stories that we'll go into in further details as we move along with the show. This morning, we're also joined by Judith, who brings us breakfast headlines. Good morning, Judith.
Good morning, guys. How are you all doing this morning? This fine Thursday morning.
Well, hey, how you doing, Judith? Good to have you here again once more. Funny thing is, we've all worked at one time or the other together someplace else, haven't we all?
That's the beauty of the media journey. Judith, I'd like to find out your thoughts as well on the return of the 137 children and the sketchy scenarios surrounding the return, the seeming secrecy that is bedeviling this announcement of their return, the fact that the parents are not on ground to receive them, and the fact that we're hearing that it's actually 137 and not 287, and that was a mistake of the media.
Right. So we know that it's 137 that was rescued during the sting operation when they rescued them, right? And we understand that 6 were taken to the hospital. We don't know what the nature of their injury or their illness or what it was that they were to the hospital for, but they said 6 were in the hospital, and so 131 children were available during the handover ceremony with the chief, the army, and the state governor. But I know as of last night, there was news that was breaking that they're finally been reunited with their family. And honestly, Olive, I am unbelievably happy that finally the families get to sleep well at night knowing that their children are still with them. You know, they're back home, back to their, you know, their ward, back to where is familiar with them. But, you know, and I think I heard you talking about, you know, therapy. And and that's really where the question is now, the aftermath of this reunion, because that's a traumatic experience, having to be in the hands of the captors or at the captive den for, I don't know, 16 days. That is a very long time. And these are very, very, very young children. And we have to also put into consideration gender-based violence, given that March is the month of women. You know, those are conversations that need to be had as per rehabilitation of these children that have been with the captors for 16 days. I mean, when you think about what we think about as rehabilitation, you would see the government would tilt towards rehabilitating, you know, the militants and, you know, terrorists and everything else, but not the victims. And I do hope that these children get to be taken more seriously. Absolutely. Right after that, you know, rehabilitation as much as possible. You know,
I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, Judy. This is the International Women's Month. As we talk about this, we also hope that in the nearest future or in the nearest couple of days, we'll hear the release of the 200 women who were also kidnapped at the IDP camp. There's more to these stories we hope to explore. But before you bring us breakfast headlines, let's share what our top stories today are. We'll bring in you updates regarding the slain soldiers. They've been buried as President Tinubu awards family members. We'll look into the details of what that is.
Also some news about the embattled Labour Party chairman, Aburi, and his re-election.
It's a lot of drama going down there. And kidnappers must be treated as terrorists, according to President Tinubu. This is regarding the, of course, 287, or do I say 137?
And sad news to those who rejoiced after hearing that there might be a reduction in fuel prices. Well, no, that is being debunked right now by the NNPCL. So
and now we bring you the front pages of the newspapers. Let Judy take you through breakfast headlines.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines. I am Judith Atibi. The burial ceremony of 17 Army personnel killed in Okuama community, Delta State, southern Nigeria, held on Wednesday. The remains of the personnel were laid to rest at about 6 p.m. at the National Cemetery, Abuja. In attendance at the burial were President Bola Tinubu, Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, and Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Harud Lagbaja, among others. In the meantime, President Bola Tinubu has declared that individuals involved in crimes such as kidnapping must be treated as terrorists. The president made the declaration on Tuesday at a Ramadan dinner with members of the federal judiciary led by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, CJN, Justice Olukayode Ariwola. Reiterating the government's resolve to defeat banditry, the president said those who resort to kidnapping children are cowards and incapable of confronting the might of the Nigerian armed forces. Julius Abure has secured his re-election as the national chairman of the Labour Party for a second term with unanimous support from delegates. The chairman of the National Convention and Deputy Governor of Abia State, Ikechukwu Emetu, announced the winner at the party's National Convention in Nnewi, Anambra State, on Wednesday. And the Federal Road Safety Corps says it has set up more than 200 mobile courts to prosecute traffic offenders during the Easter Special Patrol operations across Nigeria. Now, this was contained in a statement on Tuesday by the Corps Public Education Officer, Jonas Agu. Agu said the mobile courts were set up towards ensuring a safe and smooth 2024 Easter celebration. And still in the region, son of former Guinea-Bissau's President Malam Sanha has been sentenced to over 6 years in prison by a U.S. court for leading an international heroin trafficking ring. Now, authorities, say 52-year-old Malam Sanha Jr. planned to use the proceeds to fund his ambitions to become Guinea-Bissau's president through a coup and was linked to the February 2022 foiled coup attempt in the country. And on to East Africa, in Kenya, where the interior minister of the country says the site where hundreds of bodies were discovered buried in shallow mass graves in April of 2023, will now be a site of remembrance, as well as the final resting place for some of the victims of what has been dubbed as the Shakahula Forest Massacre. The minister called it one of the worst tragedies on Kenyan soil. Self-proclaimed Pastor Paul Ntanga Mackenzie is alleged to have incited his followers to starve themselves to death to meet Jesus. And that's all at this hour. Back to the anchors, and that's Olive and Mazino.
Thank you very much, Judith, for bringing us breakfast headlines. We'll see you again at 9 a.m. And now we'll go on a very quick break. When we come back, we'll be looking straight into our top stories. Stay with us.
And you're welcome back. Now let's start with our top stories this morning. Let's inform you this morning that the Kuriga abducted school children have finally been reunited with their families. Our correspondent says it was a low-key event at the Government House, Kaduna State. The in-house media team of the Government House were the only media team on ground and covered the event before sharing the video to the Government House Correspondents Group.
This has led to many questions regarding the manner the entire abduction and rescue mission has been conducted, leaving questions in the minds of many, such as, is the government trying to hide anything? And why are journalists prevented from having access to these children and their parents? Now, the reports that we have regarding this is that they have been reunited with their parents, which again we said is good news. But what exactly are the sketchy details behind this? The federal government has also come out to say that no ransom was paid for these children, which is great news. But what exactly was the price that had to be paid?
Well, I'd like to think that the government actually has an aim. What they're trying to do is stand against whatever instances we have of terrorists or negotiating with terrorists. That is clear. However, there are still some questions that need to be answered, like we talked about from earlier. Apart from that, now rehabilitating the students after they've been back with their parents, you said that this morning regarding how they're going to fare from now on. Then there is the situation where if the parents are going to be at liberty to send their kids back to school, we know the government is initiating. As a parent,
there, I would not send my kid.
You wouldn't. Why wouldn't you exactly?
Because it's the fear of if it happened before, it can happen again. We've seen it happen over and over again. Ever since the widely publicized Chibok kidnapping in 2014, we've seen repeated incidents. We've seen Chibok. We've seen several other school children who have been kidnapped. And it's harrowing enough as a parent to have to send your child to school every day, praying that they return. And then having them now being kidnapped, kept for a number of days, gone through the media optics of photo ops, kept them for days, and then finally reunited with them. It's very difficult for a parent to want to send their children back to that same school.
However,
did you see the pictures of the school?
I saw. Yeah, not very, quite terrible itself.
It was far from the school structure.
Yeah. However, there are efforts by the government being put in place. Remember, is it the NSCDC now being put in place, or rather, there's a special new corps that's been put together to help aid school security. Would that foster, encourage parents or pupils to go back to school? Not so sure. How exactly are they going to operate? Are they operating with weapons in itself? Students? I'm not very sure about that.
To be honest, that might be like treating the symptom, and and while I'm all for treating the symptom while we get to the core, right? I'd always said that one of our challenges is that we're not very proactive. We wait until there's an attack and then we become reactive, as opposed to predicting the possibility of this attack happening and protecting ourselves from these attacks. So yes, I'm totally for whatever moves to make the children feel more secure, setting up marshals, getting security people to man these schools. But it just further reveals the fact that we have a bigger problem. We have an insecurity challenge. Before this kidnap, I think barely a week before this happened, there were about 16 people that were kidnapped in the same Kaduna. Exactly. Before the kidnap of the 16, there was the 200 women who were kidnapped a day before International Women's Day. So if you look at the month of March alone, the month is not even ended. We've had over 500 people kidnapped. So it's revealing that we don't have a grip on the problems of insecurity in Nigeria. And until we solve the problems with insecurity, two main issues I think that we need to attack head on: insecurity and power. In fact, It's not just two.
Yeah, a bit exhausting now, isn't it? However, there is
remember the
also the
number.
question regarding this new court that's being put in place. What about the police? What about state policing? We've talked about this so many times regarding whether the state policing would be a better option regarding security. Not the army, because we're still coming to that instance in a bit when we talk about the Okuama instance. However, what faith do we have in the Nigerian police? Could it be stronger? Could community policing be a better option? These are questions.
I think
or
most
at least
people now
maybe-
start to agree with the idea of community policing. Even the assembly, we've seen them bring it before the House, and the conversation about, making state persons approving of state policing. So yes, I completely agree with you. And many people, the president, I'm sure, does agree that state policing is the way to go now. There's also the conversation about sort of the governors themselves, looking within the state. Yesterday on the front pages of the papers, whilst Zamfara governor was crying about how insecurity is destroying the north, Borno State governor come out to say, we've been able to conquer insecurity in Borno State, or been able to defeat it. So I would think that now is a great time for the Northern Governors Forum, or the coalition of Northern Governors, to come together, realize that, okay, we have a common problem. How do we work on this common problem? How do we ensure that we have more people, we fight against this challenge of insecurity? So I think that this is something that the Northern governors need to focus on. We need to see how exactly, what one governor has done that has worked for them, that the other governors can employ to help work for them. It's a challenge, and we need to get to the root of it.
Well, hopefully all of these are the concerns of the government currently, and that maybe we'll see...
maybe the government is currently being overburdened.
Exactly.
But I do
the
think
point
that
is-
insecurity is the key challenge that we're facing now. It is somebody that hasn't been kidnapped. It's someone that is alive that will talk about the Naira rate and the dollar rate. It's someone that is alive that
I
will
get
be,
you there.
So I feel like
Absolutely correct.
it's a bone in our neck that we need to find a way to push down or, kick out, really. But anyway, we'll be bringing more updates regarding the state of Nigeria's security. Let's bring you updates regarding the unfortunate incidents in Okuama and Okoloba. Nigeria's president has approved scholarship up to university level for all children of the 17 soldiers killed in Okuama community in Delta State. This was during the burial ceremony of the soldiers at the National Military Cemetery in Abuja, where the president commiserated with the families of the soldiers and the military, promising to ensure that those responsible will be brought to book. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, now reports.
The remains of the 17 soldiers who were killed on March the 14th while on a peacekeeping exercise in the Okuama community of Delta State, Nigeria's South-South region. Emotions filled the atmosphere as relatives, friends and colleagues, including senior government officials and Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, gathered at the National Military Cemetery in Abuja to pay their last respects.
When soldiers die in the hands of the enemies of the state, we take it as dying for what the nation has considered a just cause. But when they are gruesomely murdered by the very people they are trained, equipped, and took an oath to protect, it is highly demoralizing.
We will honor your memory by continuing the fight against those who seek to undermine our peace and security. We will remain steadfast in our resolve to build a nation worthy of your sacrifice.
President Tinubu, while commending the military for not carrying out a reprisal attack on the community, announced the award of national honors to all the slain soldiers. He also ordered the payment of benefits to their families immediately.
The 4 gallant officers have been accorded the award of members of the Order of Niger, MON. The 13 courageous soldiers who also lost their lives have been awarded the Officers of the Federal Republic Medal. The military, we appeal to you to within the next 90 days to ensure that all benefits of departed are paid to their families.
It was all sorrow and tears as the military laid its slain comrades, and you can literally feel the agony in the atmosphere. President Bola Tinubu, while assuring relatives and friends of the deceased that they will get justice, promised to bring those responsible to book.
I want to make it clear once more that those who committed this heinous crime will not go unpunished.
The president urged the military not to allow the incident at Okuama discourage them from carrying out their lawful responsibilities. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Thank you very much, Idong Joseph. First of all, I want to say and commend the president for actually making this top priority. Him being present at the event was actually something that we all needed to see as citizens of Nigeria. Reno Omokri made a submission yesterday on Twitter, which I found very interesting, where he also commended the president for his appearance, also giving us stats and facts from the past where this isn't really the case. So that's something good to see when it comes to the concern that the president has for security. It's encouraging. I'll start by saying that.
Yes, it is. I would never. I think body language is such a key part of governance.
Exactly.
In the last administration, is one of the things that we criticized. It was almost like, oh, there was no body language that showed that the government had empathy for what the people were going through. I'm not going to say that this current administration is doing amazing with body language, but yes, it's important that when people are grieving, the president is there to grieve with the people. We see it happen in the United States. Joe Biden is traveling to commiserate with people who are mourning in certain parts of the country, not necessarily because he likes to fly, but because it's important to make the people feel like, I feel your pain, I'm a part of your pain. And we did criticize the president when there was the mistaken bombing by the armed forces, and he wasn't there to commiserate with them. Yes, he sent his vice president, but a number of people were like, no, you should have come yourself. So yes, I totally agree with you.
I also believe that there must be plenty that he has to handle at any given time.
I do agree, but it's also, some people would then say it then shows what level of priority is attributed to this. Well, I would like us to shift our focus away from him being there, which is great, to also talk about what is being done and what is considered adequate compensation for our armed forces.
Well, currently they've been awarded posthumous awards, OFRs and MONs. That's fantastic. Regarding the families, however, I think the kids have been given full scholarship, including those that are unborn, and families have been given the opportunity to have houses or
in any part of the country.
In any part of the country. Is this enough?
So that's one thing. And two, it would be nice to hear from someone who's currently a member of Nigeria's armed force. Every January 15th, we're celebrating Armed Forces Remembrance Day. They're laying wreath. They're doing all sorts of celebrations and ceremonies. Is to find out what exactly is the value of the life of a member of Nigeria's armed forces.
Exactly.
If you go outside, it's why young children look forward so much to being a part of the military, to being a part of the United States Armed Forces, because they're treated with so much respect. They are revered. It's why you see a person on the queue, a member of the Armed Forces, and everybody's like, oh no, please go forward. It's like, oh, we thank you for your service. We thank you for your service. There are videos of them reuniting with their families on social media that's heartwarming, and people are crying to it. We need to accord that same level of regard and respect.
They put their lives on the line for us, so I guess that perhaps maybe that is absolutely necessary that we do recognize them. So
absolutely.
Got all the stories, don't we?
Indeed, we do. We'll move away from that story to bring updates regarding the statement that President Tinubu made. President Bola Tinubu has made a public condemnation of actions of kidnappers nationwide, attributing their wicked acts to that of terrorists. During the Ramadan dinner attended by members of the federal judiciary, including the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, the president gave a direct response to what Islamic scholar had said earlier in the week, that kidnappers should be called for negotiations.
Nobody wants arms or any danger on his or her backyard. And no national leader will want to mortgage the future of their children. We are working hard. Yes, the bandits just please uphold our resolve when we say kidnappers are terrorists and don't rule against us. That's the way we perceive them. That is the way we must treat them.
Child kidnappers as cowards lacking the ability to stand up to the Nigerian Armed Forces might. Now, this follows the recent Kuriga kidnapping of students, the abduction of Ondo State, in Ondo State and in Jos Plateau State. Joining us to discuss the insecurity crisis is the retired Director of Department of State Service and Security Expert, Mr. Dennis Amarkri. Mr. Dennis, you're welcome. Good to have you here.
Good morning. No, thank you very much.
Grand. Now, Mr. Dennis, regarding the reference of abductors as terrorists, first off, let's clear that out. How do you feel about this? Do you think that that is fair enough to regard them as terrorists?
Well, thank you. This has been done before. This has been done already. Because you remember that when we wanted to buy the Tucano jets, it was refused in the second instance that the Americans don't want to sell it to us because they feel we are going to use it on civilian population. Because the bandits are classified as civilians. And of course, they cannot be called bandits and then we sell them because we wanted to fight the bandits at that time. Somebody went to court. I think the federal government went to court, the high court, and they were now declared as terrorists. So bandits or kidnappers are all terrorists. When we talk about kidnappers being treated as terrorists, what kidnapping is, it's only for somebody who have not experienced it. Because kidnapping is a trauma. It's a trauma. There's a lady that was kidnapped. She came from the United States to visit Nigeria with her daughter and husband, and they were traveling and they were kidnapped. And gory story. That lady has decided never to come back to Nigeria again because of what happened to her in front of her. They wanted to rape the daughter, and she said, instead of raping the daughter, rape me. And they went and did it before her husband. That is terror. That's sheer terror. So kidnappers are terrorists. Before they don't used to kill, but now they kill. And you've seen the videos, that goes around about how they were treating school children or how they were beating up their, hostages. So it's proper. I agree with the president.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Makri, for sharing your point with us. You've said, and you agree with the president, who has said that kidnappers should be treated as terrorists. And Sheikh Gumi, we've been following the news to see how he has, in many cases, said that we should negotiate with these people. And he's been recently invited for a meeting. And from the reports of the meeting, he did say that there was no animosity, it was a courtesy, visit to some extent, and that, they discussed how to end banditry. Talk to us about your thoughts on Sheikh Gumi and the influence he seemingly has in Nigeria, especially regarding conversations surrounding terrorism.
Well, one thing about Sheikh Gumi is that I think he's one cleric that seeks attention. And of course, he does not watch what he says. And then, of course, he feels that he's a sacred cow. He feels that he's a sacred cow. I think what has just happened by him being invited is to burst his bubble, to show him that, look, you can be touched. You can be touched. And of course, his spokesman is already in court for terrorism financing. And that's why he was saying that, the man should be released. And of course, the man was bold enough to say that the federal government should apologize to him, or I think he was taking them to court or something like that. Terrorism financiers are worse than terrorists. And then, of course, those who support them are terrorists. So for him, I think he better watch his back, because they've talked to him. He must have gone there and, claimed that he was trying to help and stuff like that. But if more facts emerge about his activities, I think he has to go in for it.
But do you think that anything will come out of this invitation? But because from what he's saying, it's not looking like there's going to be any arrests made. He's saying they had a conversation about how to end banditry in Nigeria. And from, all indications, a number of security experts who have come on the show, we had one yesterday, and he said clearly that every administration knows those who, maybe not all, but majority of those who are financing and sponsoring terrorism, and those who are encouraging it as well. So Will anything come out from the list of 15 terrorist financiers that was released? Will anything come from inviting Sheikh Gumi, or is it just business as usual, or like they like to say in Nigeria, eye service?
No, it's not eye service. One thing we have to understand is that when the security agencies invite you, it is not necessarily to detain you. Because I think what some Nigerians were thinking is that, oh, we should detain him, keep him there and then teach him a lesson. No. Security agencies or even the police can invite you to their office in the process of investigation, because they are investigating something, and then they find that you are an interested party. They can invite you and then, of course, interview you. Interview is not interrogation, and interrogation is not arrest. So we have to be very, very clear about this. Many people in the public are not aware of this.
Let's talk about the Kaduna instance, sir. So regarding the Kaduna instance, the reunited, the students getting back to their families and all, it's something to celebrate. Grand. We enjoy the fact that they have been rescued, whatever the case, however they were rescued. But regarding the fact that we are being kept away from most of the information regarding this rescue operations, do you think that there is
It was almost a rumor or mere speculation when the military announced.
I am also waiting for the details of how these girls were released. Is it a rescue? Is it a release? If it's a release, that means they just give them away to the security agents. Take, we don't want again, right? But remember, taking this number of children into the desert or wherever in the Sahel, and then move them from Kaduna State to Zamfara State, there are so many things that need to be found out. One of them is how were they moved? Was there a lorry taking them around? Was there a kind of transportation? Were they moving by foot? And look at them. Kids like this cannot be moving, all the way from Kaduna State to Zamfara State by foot in the bush. So that is something that the security agencies will tell us, because right now I'm sure they are talking to them, they are debriefing them, and they will tell them a lot, So let's wait for the end of that investigation.
Great. I mean, you've highlighted very key areas, key points as well that have given us concern. Zamfara back to Kaduna is a 10-hour journey, so it's mind-blowing to think how these children navigated this journey without being spotted at any point. Still talking about the Kaduna rescue, the numbers that were initially released was 287 at the time that this was announced. But at the time of rescuing these children, we hear that it's 137 and that there was an error on the part of the media. What are your thoughts on how this was handled? Shouldn't this have maybe been announced at the point where it became news, at the point where the kidnap had happened, maybe a day or two after, not at the point of rescuing these kids?
I agree with you. As an investigator myself, those are the questions that I want to ask. How can you come out and announce 285 or 87 people being kidnapped? Don't they have a register of the students in that school? And then, of course, the governor might not have been well briefed, because the governor came in there and also supported that number of people that had been taken away. And then, when they returned, only 137 were returned. And you say, this is the total number. In fact, they said it was 137. It was one of the girls who said that actually it's 138, because one of their teachers was killed. He died. So the numbers are not adding up. We need to know that. We need to know that. And it's very, very important that they tell Nigerians exactly what happened. Because it's very, very, important where maybe if the number is not correct, we might later see some parents coming around to ask, where are their own children? Remember the Chibok girls? Same thing. You know, when they released them, not all of them were released till today. So let's not do politics. Let's not mix this security situation with politics, whereby you are trying to gain some kind of favorite image, or rushing to say, oh, we release them in record time and stuff like that. Because what are you doing at the same time? You are giving impetus to those kidnappers whom the president have declared as terrorists. And then, of course, he has said that there should be no ransom payment. So whichever way, I think it is very, very important that we get our facts straight.
So, Mr. Makri, the president has said that, yes, we refer to them as terrorists, but let's talk about the modus operandi of the security forces onward from now. Regarding the formation of a special corps to help marshal students, education basically in the north, and at a time where Nigeria is also calling for state policing in Nigeria, there's a certain question here whether the police is not capable enough to secure students in these parts of the country, and whether we absolutely need a totally different corps to be able to do that. What are your takes on this?
Now, you know, we have been advocating for state police, and I'm one of the, you know, foremost proponents of that. You know, we've been advocating. In fact, we were talking about state police when this particular government was in the opposition party. You know, because, and they supported it. I remember the advisor to the Lagos State, security advisor to the Lagos State governor at that time. And by that time, the present government actually was in the opposition, and they were supporting state police. Now, when they got into government, I think we don't hear much about it until recently. I think everybody is now pushing for it, and I think they have to go to the National Assembly to make the necessary adjustments. And I hope it comes to light, because when you look at Nigeria, we have these non-state actors, most likely from foreign countries, who came into this country, occupied the forest area, the desert areas, or wherever, where the government presence is not effective or is not known. There are 774 local governments in Nigeria, and these government, local government areas supposed to have a DPO and even DSS, NSCDC people, all of them around that area. But now when you look at it, you find out that these local governments have been attacked in so many times, and most of them are in very rural areas. Maybe the terrorists were attacking some villages where the local government chairman or somebody is not around. But it's such a vast area, and they have occupied what we now refer to as ungoverned spaces. Ungoverned in the sense that there is no law enforcement, there is nothing there. And they come there, they do what they want to do, and they go away. So if we have state police will be restricted to their area. There will be, because crime is committed in a locality, and they will be able to respond. Response is one of the most important things. And then, of course, besides response, they would have been trained. State police would have been trained with special intervention squad tactics. I hope the one that the IGP is now putting together, are well trained, because it's training that makes the difference. Then we don't need any military. In fact, we don't, because military are not trained to deal with civilians in a reconciliatory manner or peacekeeping or, within their own country. No. They should allow police to do that. If we feel that the police is not well equipped, then we have to raise their capabilities and their capacity.
So there's still so much to
raise the number of policemen in our country.
So there's still so much to unpack regarding the Kaduna instance when it comes to security, regarding the fact that these students were moved from one place to the other of great distance. But let's ask the question that people are, well, not too comfortable asking. Do you think, in your capacity, do you think that the entire situation was staged? Do you think that there was a ransom paid to be able to secure these students back to their families? Let's answer that question. What do you think?
That is $1 million question. It's $1 million question in the sense that, let me put it like this. You know, I have been involved in kidnap and release process, many of them, when I was working for a private company. When our expatriates were kidnapped in the Niger Delta, in those days, you know. And then, of course, we have negotiators who will come and then we negotiate with the terrorists at that time, militants, of course, that's what they call them at that time. And then, of course, they will go ahead and either release them or take some kind of ransom, which we will either negotiate downwards, you know. And then, of course, at the end of the day, in fact, if we negotiate very well and then give them some good reasons, what happens is that they will say, okay, fine. But we've been keeping this man for a month now. So we've been feeding him and we bought medicine for him. And, you know, we transported him. So we needed money to cover those expenses. Okay, fine. We'll give you. Okay? I don't know whether that's the same thing that happened with the Kuriga students. Because there is no way, and that's why we are still having the controversy of whether it is a release or a rescue. If it's a release, then there must be some kind of compromise between the Nigerian military and those boys, whereby they say, okay, we agree on this and take. You know, and of course, we don't even know whether the number is complete. So it might be kept just like the Chibok girls. They might keep that for a later day negotiation. But if it's a rescue, that means they went in there, they survey the place, and then of course they extract the students, you know, tactically, and then of course dealt with the terrorists, because we don't hear of any terrorist that was killed. We don't hear of any fireworks, or even the military. We don't hear of any military person that was killed on both sides, you know. And then, of course, the next day we saw somebody who was flaunting bundles of naira on TikTok. So.
I'm glad that you
even
mentioned
the 1+1, what you are going to get, the answer is with you.
I'm glad that you've mentioned that the bandits brandishing cash on social media. There was a report by the Vanguard newspaper about 6,931 Nigerians who have been killed. Yes, I just wanted to confirm the number. 6,931 Nigerians killed. It was a March 23, 2024 edition of the paper that stated that this has happened under Tinubu's time. Over 17,000 Nigerians from 2019 to date. Of course, the bulk of that number happening under President Muhammadu Buhari's tenure. What are your thoughts on the current administration and how it has handled insecurity so far? Would you say that it's doing a better or a worse job, even though the last administration is not the yardstick to determine how insecurity should be handled? But would you say that the current administration is doing a much better job or a much worse job?
I think right now, the present president is doing better. Better in the sense that we don't have to be guest workers or prophets to be reading the body language of our president. You know, when our soldiers were killed yesterday, he was right there. He was right there. That presence alone means a lot to people. It shows that the president cares. But the other administration, we were having a president who does not say anything. You know, people were reading his body languages. Some of his subordinates or his aides were coming out and telling Nigerians different kinds of story. In fact, he was not managing the situation very well. You know, so I would say that the present president did a very good job. He's doing a good job.
All right, Mr. Matri, thank you very much for sharing that. A number of Nigerians would feel greatly disappointed, and I know you're saying he's doing a great job, but it just feels like there's a lot happening back to back. Maybe it's why we're feeling the impact of insecurity worse now than we did in past administrations. Also talking about, as we wrap up as quickly as possible, what is it about the North, especially Kaduna, that makes it some form of a subject of these incessant attacks? Yesterday, the Borno State governor said they've been able to conquer insecurity. What is it about the Kaduna State government, or the Kaduna State as a state rather, that makes it very easy for them to be targets?
Well, you know, I have been worried about one particular point, and that is the mixture of security and politics. Security and politics. We've brought in, you know, non-state actors into this country. And these non-state actors have occupied the ungoverned spaces of Kaduna State. In fact, there was a time a former governor of that state was actually giving them stipends. He came out to say it himself, that he was giving them stipends so that they will not attack anybody. After a while, he decided that he's not going to give them again. And they said, okay, if you don't give us again, then we're going to attack all your schools. Nobody will go to school. In fact, there are children in those schools, and they are not going to go to school. And you remember, all the schools in Kaduna State were closed down. And they go ahead and they were hitting at even the NDA, because the military establishment in this country have a lot of facilities in that state. And they were doing all this up to the extent where the governor have to come out and say, oh, why can't we go and carpet bomb them? That was his exact words. Carpet bomb them. Now you're going to carpet bomb people. Then that means the collateral damage is going to be very high. And that might even, you know, give us a very bad reputational risk, where International Court of Justice could come in and say, oh, we are committing war crimes. So, right. Kaduna State has its own problems, which are mixed with security and politics. Oh. And I think, that's where you can select it out.
Mr. Dennis Amatri, thank you very much for your time with us this morning. We hope that we have positive news regarding Nigeria's fight against insecurity in the nearest future.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, if you are one of many who rejoiced recently about news that the price of fuel has been reviewed downwards, well, then you just might need to hear this one. Now, in response to recent rumors circulating about a possible reduction in petrol pump prices, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, NNPCL, has issued a statement denying such claims. Chief Communications Officer of NNPCL, Olufemi Sonoye, has categorically debunked the false reports and urged Nigerians to disregard them.
This clarification comes after reports emerged on Wednesday suggesting that NNPC will review fuel prices downwards. Mr. Sonoye emphasized the corporation's dedication to ensuring an adequate supply of petroleum products nationwide. Well,
I've got a question for you. Were you one of the people who were running to fueling stations with jerry cans trying to get it at the new price?
No, I wasn't.
But you have to admit that this is actually something that everybody kind of like rejoiced about, thought that it was actually going to be true. If it was, then that would have been great, because that would affect the price of everything else from then on. However, it's a situation of miscommunication, misrepresentation, or somebody being a bit too forward with information that was being shared internally. The IPMAN president, or is it the chairman, actually did say there were talks about the review of the prices. However, it wasn't official, it would seem. And this affected the price, I think, by 10 naira or so. But if you look at it from the marketer's perspective, that 10 naira was a big deal. So they had reviewed their prices downward, anticipating that this was going to be so. I don't know whether this did good for the citizenry.
A 10 naira review doesn't really...
For you, it might not be, but for the marketers,
understand for the marketers.
It was a big deal.
For me, that's why I probably didn't rush to the petrol station to go and buy 10 naira, a 10 naira cheaper fuel, because I typically would buy my fuel only when my tank has gotten to 1/3. I never let it get to half, because if I allow my fuel get to half,
oh, you're living on the edge there, by the way.
No. Like, right? 1/3 is the most. No. Like, okay, no. 2/3, not 1/3.
Okay.
So, like, I don't know, my mouth is a bit messed up this morning, but when it just goes a little beneath full, I go back to top it up.
Yeah.
Because my heart will not be able to bear buying fuel to fill my tank. The amount I will spend
traumatic.
is too traumatic. So I'd rather go there and buy like 20,000 so that it comes back to, it's above full. That's one. But the price of fuel, I mean, I think when Nigerians will start to rejoice is when it comes back, maybe not to what it was, but something relatively close. Make it make sense. This time last year, we were buying fuel at 185 naira. This time last year, in 1 year, we're buying fuel at 600 and I don't plus. Know, 600 plus.
And that's relative. That's relative regarding where you are.
Exactly. There are people who buy more, who pay more for fuel.
The more inward you go inland, you actually have to buy. You're buying close to up to 700 naira per liter.
So it really doesn't excite me. And what we see is that as the price of the pump price of petrol increases, it affects other things. We're seeing the cost of transportation increasing. We're seeing the cost of feeding increasing. Every day I go to the supermarket, I can't count how many hours I save. The last time I went to buy bread, I asked them, I say, what's the price of bread today? They're like, oh, it's the same as last week. I hadn't bought the week before. I said, what's the price last week? And the lady said, 1,900. I could not, in my good conscience, count 1,900 naira to buy a loaf of bread. And I said, no, don't worry. I went, and I'm saying it shamelessly, I went down the street to look for the ones that they sell with Mishai, those 300 naira bread, and I bought it. Because I'm like, yes, because how can I bring out 1,900 naira to buy bread? And that's just one of the many things that have increased every time Nigerians, and this is me, that I'm not like at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Very
and
true.
I'm struggling, and I'm complaining,
and
I'm
wonder
angry.
What people who are at that class
what are they dealing with?
What
are they going through? It's the same way they talk about how Binance has been chased out of Nigeria, how the Naira there's been a rebound in the Naira and everything. There's rumors of a rebound. We don't really even know what the current exchange rate is because, which we'll take today, we'll take this one, but looking at what's trending in Nigeria. People are saying that the cost of Naira to the dollar, the rate is 1,000 Naira to the dollar. Some people are saying 1,002. It's propaganda.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because people are still going to exchange and they're exchanging at exorbitant rates.
You have to also ask yourself whether these are pieces of information that are being put in there to actually cause to catalyze some sort of reaction from the market itself.
You cannot get a positive reaction by propaganda.
Propaganda
you can't use
aspire
to bring down the dollar.
Look at this case, for instance. The price did go down for a minute, just for a minute. At least think about the people who were able to purchase, thinking that, oh, perhaps maybe next week we'll get it at a reduced price.
I don't even think that would have made significant impact, and I'll tell you why. As a business person, if the dollar came down to 1,000 naira and I bought my goods at 1,400 naira to the dollar, I will not, for any reason, reduce the rate of my goods in my store because the dollar has come to 1,000 naira, because I'll be running at a loss.
And because you're typically Nigerian.
No, not because I'm typically Nigerian. I'll be running at a loss. I bought these things at the rate of 1,400 naira to the dollar, meaning that I had pegged what my sales price would be, reflecting how much I spent. So if you now tell me that 1,000 naira to the dollar, I'm not going to change my prices until I finish that stock. When I'm done with that, I can then review to reflect the market current reality. Even though, yes, there's a Nigerian factor of greed. I won't doubt that. There's a Nigerian factor of greed that even when things come down, there are Nigerian businesses that will never, they say what goes up in Nigeria doesn't come down. They will never reduce their prices. Matter of fact, once they sniff an increase anywhere, they will automatically increase the ones in their store. So yes, there's that element. But it's really a tough time to be Nigerian.
Yes,
it's a really tough time.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we get a definite or specific information regarding where the price is now, where it stays. What we have coming up next now?
Absolutely. We're going to show a quick recap of the conversations that we've had this morning. If you're just joining us, there's more to come. So we're going to take you through a recap and what's coming up next. This morning on Breakfast Central, we talked about the slain soldiers who have been buried as President Tinubu awards families scholarship and housing. We looked more into this.
And kidnappers must be treated as terrorists, says the president. We also discussed that one earlier.
And then we talked about NNPCL denying reducing the price of fuel. How has this impacted you? Were you grossly impacted? Let us know. Let's share what's happening in the next hour on Coming Up Next. Coming up next on Breakfast Central, embattled Labour Party chairman re-elected, NLC kicks.
And of course, we have the front pages coming, so if you're with us, we'll be taking that with you.
Absolutely. We do have What Nigerians is Saying, where we head to social media and take your tweets on X. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's time for us to review the papers this morning on Breakfast Central. We have joining us to analyze the papers, the publisher of CKN News. We have Chris Kende Nwandu. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, we're starting off with this Nigerian newspaper. On the front page of this Nigerian newspaper, the big story, of course, is talking about Okuama. It says, Okuama 17, buried with full military honors. Federal government gives MON to slain soldiers, offers scholarships, housing to wards and families. Tinubu says, killers won't go unpunished. Warns military against reprisal on innocent people. Grief as service chiefs bid farewell. Abducted First News editor Olatunji in DIA detention, says IPI. Federal government declares Friday, Monday, Easter holidays. That one no concern journalists. Anti-party activities. Aggrieved Lagos PDP members sue party George orders. Federal government sets up new economic coordination management teams. Dangote, Elumelu, Riwani make 31-member list. Anyway, I'll come back to speak a little bit about that. Despite travails, Abure re-elected Labour Party chairman as OB-OT. Others boycott convention. This is random banter. The federal government setting up new economic coordination management team. We had an economic team, I think it was economic recovery team that was set up some weeks back, and I don't know what the feedback is regarding that one. We're seeing all these names and all these very important people, and we're hoping that there's actually some feedback and some positive impact that this has, rather than just bringing big names, forming them into a committee and not necessarily seeing what exactly that committee has to offer. You want to say something on that? Okay, you can chip in something.
Okay, good one for me. But the fact is that these are still the same people that run the economy. So it's just like recycling. I don't know what they're bringing to the table. There's an economic team led by the vice president, made up of governors and some eggheads, as it were. And that think tank was supposed to drive all sorts of economic policies for the government and for Nigerians. For now, I don't know how far they'll be able to go. It has consistently since 1999, the vice president has always been the head of the economic team, starting with Atiku Abubakar in 1999, then to Sambo, Emodi Sambo, who was the vice president to Goodluck Jonathan, as well as Yemi Osinbajo, the vice president to the former President Buhari. And you come to ask yourself, what did they discuss at that? There's nothing wrong in picking an economic team. I don't have any problem with that. Once you get the right, but let's look at what happened in 1999, pre-1999.
Yeah.
Nigeria economy was in total mess when the former President Olusegun Obasanjo took over. But you saw what he did. He was so innovative. He think out of the box. That was where you have Okonjo-Iweala, where he brought Okonjo-Iweala in. He brought Charles Soludo. He brought what's that woman now? I've forgotten her name now. Ezekwesili. Yeah, and so many other heritage tax. Even Erufai was put in charge of BPA. And at the end of it, you saw what they did. They did marvelously well. That by the time that Obasanjo was leaving, Nigeria's debt was practically paid off. We had a robust economy. That went down. We cannot judge Yar'Adua because Yar'Adua was just there for about some months. When Goodluck took over, well, a little bit of improvement here and there. But let's see what is going to be. This economic, the one that is being put together, is for a period of 1 year. That's what the president has said. It's not like they're going to be there for the next 3-4 years. It is for 1 year, and probably after 1 year, he will not be able to establish and be able to reevaluate their impact. If they are not working as much as well, then you can. But let's see what comes out of it.
Absolutely. All right. Now, just to mention to our viewers that we have the phone lines open. If you'd like to call in to comment on any of the stories we're taking this morning, please call the number scrolling on your TV screen. We have Sikian here. Sikian, let's talk about the Okuama 17. The president has, of course, expressed grief, empathy. They've been buried with honors, and there have been promises made to the families. I want to find out what your thoughts are on that, as well as how well we're faring as a country in regarding according members of Nigeria's armed forces the rights that they should get in terms of the rights and the honors that they should get while they are alive.
Yes, for the first time, I was proud to be a Nigerian yesterday. Because if you see the level of type of dignitaries that turned out at that funeral, I was impressed. For the first time, the president of Nigeria is attending such. I think Buhari did once, I can't remember. But consistently, if you look at what happened in other countries like United States of America, about three Americans were killed in Iraq. President Biden was at the airport personally to receive those 3 calls. That is the value they pay to human life. You understand what I'm trying to say? So it is. So the life of a single Nigerian matter should matter to our leaders. The president was there yesterday, and so many other dignitaries. But the cherry for me is the pledge made by the president. It's not what they have been given posthumously or whatever. The pledge that the perpetrators will be arrested and made to face. That for me is the key for me.
Can I come in there and ask a question regarding that pledge now, regarding the fact that, okay, these guys have been awarded some honors and all, yeah, but it seems to have taken the story or the eyeballs away from what the attendant fact, what the instance absolutely is. We hear land dispute, but we don't have any more information regarding that land dispute. That area of the Niger Delta is known for, well, plenty of activities regarding oil bunkering and also sales, illegal sales of oil products and, well, they call it cooking. Why aren't we asking the questions right now? It seems like we're distracted from what exactly caused these instances, these 17 soldiers to be killed. Who are these who inside of these communities, and what exactly were they fighting for? Land dispute, yes, but what exactly are on those lands that are being disputed over?
You know, there's this saying, China things fall apart. It says, let's chase away the hawk first, then we can now talk to mother hen. Why you'll be able to bring out your kids or your children to be open for the hawk to go for it. I think what the government is trying to do, as it were, while still mopping up security activities in that area, is according to these guys, necessary burial. If you listen to what the chief of army staff said, yesterday, that was very, very good. So he said some things concerning how these guys were killed, how their body parts were disappeared and thrown around the villages, and the rest of them, they have to start picking them like it. That in itself is gruesome. And you saw some of the family members, the wives of them, but I want this. Yes.
But then they weren't deserved to be killed in
that is so. So just when you sign up as a military person, you sign up to take a bullet for your country. So dying has become part of the military anywhere in the world. Just a few days ago, you remember there's a Nigerian naval officer of US that fell into the sea, into the ocean. So most often but it is not the killing, the death that matters, but it's about the way we went, the human way for you to behead some after killing, beheading, open up. I've never. That is so horrible and barbaric. And that is why I still put this thing on the military, that it would be a shame on the Nigerian army and the federal government of Nigeria if they are not able to catch and be able to pick those guys behind it. But good enough, the president has promised to take care of the children, that we're going to take care of the children. I hope it's not going to be promises like in the past. Because after this ceremony, everybody goes on, they forget whatever happened. Some of them will be thrown out of the barracks, the way the military and the police used to do it. You see families of same policemen and soldiers, after they are buried, less than 6 months, their family are sent away from the barracks. Now the president said we're going to provide homes. He has given a marching order that all the gratuity must be paid within 9 months, 3 months. Yeah. I think 90 days, 3 months. I hope that somebody will be following up on that. Not only somebody, but even we journalists, it is also part of our duties to be able to make sure that we follow up on these promises and make sure that these promises are kept. That is that for me.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to our next daily, the front page for the Punch newspaper this morning. For the Punch newspaper, we have these headlines. Tinubu insists on killer's arrest as family demands justice. We just spoke about that. Killers won't go unpunished. President vows confers confers posthumous national honors on slain soldiers. At the top for the Punch newspaper, President's 50-member emergency teams get 6 months to rescue economy, and SIM and NIN subscribers kick against Friday deadline demands extension. There's always deadline every other week, and I don't know why Nigerians never really take this to heart.
Is it Nigerians or is it the people that are giving us deadlines? They should come and explain every time they're doing SIM, NIN link, SIM, NIN.
Then again, you can't say it's the people that are giving us these deadlines, but Nigerians are rather obstinate sometimes regarding these. Personally, sometimes I'm also like that, thinking that I'll get to it next week, and then the deadline comes. At the bottom for the Punch newspaper, Defense Intelligence Agency holding abducted Lagos editor, says the IPI, and Olubada designate. He's healthy and will appear in public soon. And now this one, which I find very interesting since yesterday, NLC faults Abure's return, LP tips Obi for 2027. Let's talk about the NLC, let's talk about the Labour Party. Let's talk about Abure's re-election as the chairman of the party. Now yesterday, it would seem that he stepped into the ring with only the blue corner. There's nobody inside of the red corner. And of course, what you expect is for him to be re-elected as the president. We have certain very identified people inside of that party who have gone on to do, we have the former presidential candidates, Peter Obi himself, and then Oti. Now, these people have an influence on the party. They have no say, however, it would seem, when it comes to the re-election of Abure. It seems like a case of Julius versus Joe. And the party being coming off of the NLC itself, being a part of the NLC from before, what exactly are we looking at when it comes to the Labour Party now, noticing that it was first of a beacon of hope for most Nigerians who thought that this was a party that would hear our voices as Nigerians, as citizens who are suffering, also calling down all other parties because they didn't have them at heart. Now this is happening in such a party that was quite the party to look forward to, especially when it comes to youths in the country.
It's typical of Nigerian politicians. So it's not just about the Labour Party. To be a typical Nigerian politician is a very selfish, self-centered individual with all sense of humility, as far as I'm concerned. What is happening is the Labour Party, for me, it came too early. It came too early because, as we already mentioned, this is a party that was a beacon of hope for some individuals, especially the younger ones. And that is only centered, when you talk of Labour Party, that is only centered around Peter Obi. Remove Peter Obi from Labour Party. It's neither here nor there. Most of those that you saw that's moving en masse, trying to vote for Labour Party, was because of the candidature of Peter Obi. So the party, Peter Obi was the arrowhead. Then the second one is that in the past few days, weeks, there have been a lot of accusation on the person of the national chairman of that party. And that accusation is coming from internally. An ESCO member, the financial secretary, or the treasurer, whichever one she was, or she is that, came up to say that this man is corrupt. And the case is in court presently. But the way manner, I personally thought that for you to be able to, a party that prides itself as a hope for the opposition, I don't think this would have gone through. But top part is also the issue of the NLC. With all sense of, from what I've learned and what is right when you go through the books, the party is owned by NLC. Mm-hmm. That party was established by NLC under Adams Oshoman. They used to have a name before, then it was changed. Their former chairman, Dan Iwanyango, had come out to say that it was NLC that established it. So whether you like it or not, NLC must have a say in what is going on in the Labour Party. The only part I don't like is that where the president of NLC is also trying to be an interested party on issues like this, because it doesn't give room for that neutrality when it comes to opinion motive.
Exactly,
when it comes to opinion motive, divorce your politics from unionism, that becomes a problem. And any smart government, as it were, we always catch on that. So if you raise an issue and you want to call out people for a strike, the government will always tell you, oh, he's a member of a political party, and that is there's been total conflict of interest.
The big question now is, do you see Peter Obi remaining inside of the LP? And if not, where would he go? And then what does that mean for Nigerian politics? Would it be the same thing where perhaps maybe he moves to any of the other parties and then we're here all over again?
The convention was then held in Anambra State. Yeah. Peter Obi is from Anambra State. But the fact that Peter Obi was not there, don't tell me that he didn't know that that speaks volume.
Exactly.
You also talk about the governor of Abia State, his deputy was there. He was the deputy that conducted the distance. So even if he's not there, once the deputy, he must have given approval for his deputy to be there. But key members of the party were not there. And from what we are hearing, from what I'm hearing today, not confirmed, fully confirmed, but I'm hearing this morning that the BOT have dissolved that executive, so-called executive headed by Abuja. So what we are going to see is that court is going to be court again. And before you know it, this party will be in disarray. Abuja say, oh, it's from external parties, it's from those that didn't like the party, from other parties than the rest of them. But yourself, you as the national chairman, have you been able to cover yourself in right robes? Have you been able to do the right thing? Certain allegations were made against you. Okay, we are in court. But why the rush to have this so-called convention that he had to? And must you recontest? If you are a statesman, must you contest? Because I thought that the first thing would have been to be able to bring all aggrieved entities within the party together and form a common front and resolve this issue. And the same thing is going to, if you look at the front page also, the same thing is happening in Lagos PDP, where the ESCO or certain aspirants yesterday came together and said that they are going to charge certain people to court. They are taking some people to judge to court for anti-party activities because of his activities during the last election. And I just think that this opposition party, this wasn't how APC played opposition when PDP was in power. APC was a solid opposition party, and that was
an opposition that is just
within yourself that you are not. You are just. I don't know this kind of politician, and that's the problem. When they were going about this thing, we are turning this country to a one-party system.
Well, it's typical of Nigerian political parties, and but we had hope for that the LP was going to be a totally different party. It's like it's a Nigerian factor at the end of the day.
I started by saying that the average Nigerian politician is a very selfish, self-centered person.
Very true.
There was another headline I wanted to touch on regarding the SIM and NIN registration and extension, call for extension by Nigerians. How many extensions are we going to call for? What are they doing wrong that we're not really getting here? Is it a problem from the registers, the NIN registers themselves, or is it Nigerians that are not paying heed to these?
It's the Nigerian factor. It's the Nigerian factor for
Once
me.
again,
when you are asked to do BVN, people wait to the last day and they start rushing to the bank, or when they cut off. When they say go and do your NIN, people will be waiting to the last day. Some people don't even believe that. Some people won't even believe. So I think the NS, I totally support the NCC on this. You can't go to any country. My sister just came back.
welcome back.
I've been back for over a month.
You have been. I know you just came back. So my sister just came back. She's a globetrotter. She just came back, and I know that in those countries, there's no way you can just pick up a SIM at the airport just for the fun of it. They will ask for your international passport. They will get you registered before handing over. It's for security purposes.
And I hear you.
Yes.
I hear you correctly with this explanation. However, whilst I do agree that there's a Nigerian factor of us rushing to do things very last minute, there's also the discouragement that comes with running to do these registrations, and we're seeing increased cases in insecurity. And you're wondering, how is this able to happen? Don't you have our data? Didn't you put us under pressure to go do this registration, saying that if we did it, it will help the fight against insecurity because you have everyone's
One other factor,
data.
Olive, the fact that I have registered my SIM 4 times.
That's where
4 times, and I still have the call each time to go back. Exactly.
I totally agree with you on that way, because there have been instances where even myself, I've registered in fact, the last one that showed me is that the same name that I've used to register, even get my international passport, renew my national, only for me to be told that, oh, that is not correct. Can you imagine that? That the name that I've used several years to even renew my international passport recently, they now told it that it's not correct. So there's something wrong. The problem we have is collection of data in Nigeria.
Yeah.
The problem is, and we are told that with the name, that everything will be linked together. In the whole country, you don't see them carrying all different types of identity. When you want to go to the bank, they say do identification. You go to collect your driving license, they do identification.
I recently tried to open an account, and it was so ridiculous. They'll tell you, bring your NIN, bring your BVN.
Exactly.
I'm just like,
tedious.
It's just very one person.
Why do we have that? Why don't we have a centralized data system? So that you just go to the
Well, they claim that is what they're trying to achieve.
Since how many years? Let me give you a classical example. If we have a clear data point, look at, for instance, what happened with the Binance executive officer that went out of the country. got him an international passport from Kenya. The man escaped from where he was kept in the official guest house, drove to the airport, went through the process. Somebody must have taken his biometric.
Red flag.
Yes. So wouldn't have been red flag. You can't. There's no two fingerprints that is same in the world, all over the world. None.
Exactly.
None. Never. It's not done. God. That's why God is very creative. When you put this thing, I remember when I went for the African Nations Cup, and I was coming. Yes. I went after you know, and I got to the airport on my way back. And there was supposed to be this facial identification, recognition. I stood there and they said, oh God, they can't. What they did was, okay, sir, come this way. They now took me to where I was able to do my fingerprint. And once I just pointed it, just a go.
Yeah. Exactly.
So nobody can. So the problem remains that all this so-called data that we are gathering and the rest of them is obvious that they are not in sync.
In itself are becoming the problems.
Yes, let's move away from there to our next paper. We have the Daily Independent newspaper. On the front page of the Daily Independent, Labour Party defies protest, holds national convention, re-elects Abure, reserves 2027 presidential governorship tickets for Obi Oti. Does Obi want to run though? I guess we'll find out. Urges Tinubu to take drastic steps to save economy from collapse. 2023 election, PDP candidates in Lagos drag body judge, Bucknor, others to court. No price increase on petrol, diesel, NNPC assures Nigerians. Assures? Nigerians don't want that assurance.
Yeah, we want a different kind.
Okay, they say no price increase. Okay. I interpreted it as no price decrease. Okay, great. Tinubu to U.S. congressional delegation. My commitment to deepen democracy has not waned. APC inaugurates Uzodinma Abdulrazak Buni, 3 others as zonal coordinators. Okuama killings, I share in your grief, Tinubu tells deceased soldiers' families. Bestows posthumous honors on 17 army personnel laid to rest. Slain soldiers left pregnant widows and 21 orphans, according to Army Chief. Tinubu unveils PECC, names Dangote, Elmelu, Rabiu, others as members. And at the bottom of the paper we have, hike in Hajj fees, Ndume Kicks says Muslims will be denied participation. I need to look into the details of this story. I don't want to say what I'm not sure of. The last story about hiking Hajj fees, Ndume Kicks says Muslims will be denied participation. I think that maybe it's time we revisit the government sponsoring, I don't know what the current position is, but sponsoring pilgrimages for different religions. I mean, the ones that they sponsor to Mecca and the ones that they sponsor to Jerusalem. And I'm Christian, and I think that it's something that anyone who wants to go on their own should be able to go on their own. So I wouldn't even, I mean, I'm saying this because I don't think that they should sponsor anybody to Jerusalem. I don't think they should sponsor anybody. So everyone who wants to go on a religious pilgrimage, I feel that they should be able to go on their own. I don't know what the thought is.
Yes, but this particular case is not about sponsorship.
Okay, so please help.
It's the fare. I think the fare was pegged at about 4.9 or 4.9 or 4.7 for everybody goes.
For the flight fare?
Return tickets, everything.
Okay.
You know, the total package was about 4.9 or 4.7, I can't remember. Just a few days before they want to embark, they paid. A few days before they embark, they want to embark on it. They now increase it by another 1.9.
That's not fair.
That is what they are fighting. That is what Indume and rest of them. So they now increase by another 1.9 million naira. And people are saying, we have already paid, you have issued us this thing. How come now, a few days to this, you are asking the Hajj Commission or whoever is in charge, and now asking them to come and pay extra 1.9. And they start kicking, say, we don't. Some say we don't have that money.
They shouldn't.
Some say, just refund my money
What's
to me.
What's the explanation as to why they're increasing it?
I don't know whatever explanation they have to give. A contract is a contract, for goodness sake. So it's a valid contract, is one that is signed and delivered. I always say it on this program. As a law graduate, that is what it is. So that's the fundamental is that once you sign that contract, irrespective of whatever comes, that is your business. Because I expect you to have done your due diligence to be able to know what is going to cost us. And if we have paid, then it's within you to be able to. So that is where the problem is, and that is where someone like Senator Ali Ndume is not saying that, said no. Right, so I don't know how that is going to be resolved, but I know that in the next few days, the Hajj must have commenced or would have commenced. There's a time frame. If they are not able to meet their part of that, then they should be sued. That's my personal opinion. They should be sued, and sued very well to be able to so for damages and the rest of them. You cannot just wake up like that. It's not today you start planning that. You don't plan Hajj just over 2 days. And so that is what Alain Dume and some of the those that are going on hijack.
I think that's very important. I mean, it's a contract. If they have paid a certain sum, the other party who has promised to deliver should be, should
obligated to
held to deliver.
Definitely.
But I want to also find out your thoughts on sponsorship of religious.
No, I totally agree with you. There was a time that there was a policy statement on that. I'm not too sure by the government that they will stop sending people. And I wonder, is a personal thing.
The big question is,
a personal thing.
Who are these opportunities actually open to? People are selected. So can any ordinary person actually be?
People in government, it's those same people in government, they just pick their families, pick people they necessarily. Yes, they pick them and they just sending them. What has my religion got to do with you?
What has it got to do
what has it got to do with governance of the country? Why must people be saying? There's a lot. We are more Catholic than the Pope most of the time. We are one of the most so-called religious people. But when you talk of corruption, you see where we are. Where you're talking of in terms of developmental goals, you see where we are. A country like China is not religious, and one of the highest, most developed countries in the world. You can say yes, U.S. Play some as well as issue of religion, called Christianity and the rest of them. But you can't see the American government sending people to Israel or sending people to Mecca. It's not done. It's your personal. If you want to go to, it's like what I was saying before. My sister going on holiday. If she wants to go on holiday, it's her personal. They cannot just.
Wow, this is my holiday. We will not get over it.
No, but in fact, what I'm trying to say in essence is a personal pleasure.
I agree.
It is a contract between you and your creator. So what tells you that, unlike that of the Islam, it said that at least a Muslim should try as possible to at least make it to Mecca once in a while. 25 pillars of Christianity. For goodness
sake. We've got one last paper for today. Let's take the Daily Trust newspaper. We've got this big headline here: tears as slain military personnel buried in Abuja. Heartless people took away our breadwinner, say the family, and deceased officers get national honors. We covered that from earlier. The pictures are there. Very sad situation. We saw the visuals with crying family members. Rescued Kuriga students to reunite with families today. And Gombe approves 43 billion naira for governors, residents, and others. Is that a big sum for is this renovation or is this outright new? Big question there. IPI to Tinubu, direct military to produce abducted editor. Regarding this situation about the editor, what's your take on it real quick, because I have very little time.
Yes, I don't know why an editor or a Nigerian for that matter, let's even leave, because when we say editor now, they say we are biased because we're journalists. So a Nigerian that can be abducted from his house, and for close to 2 weeks, we don't know where he is, nobody's saying anything. And it was said that there are security agencies that picked him up. But IPI have come to say that they have been able to trace him to the confinement of the DIA. It's now for DIA to come out and tell Nigerians why. Because the DIA is an office under the office of the chief, Chief of Defense Staff. That is a department of that. So the IPI had come out to specifically say that is where he is. Let DIA come out and. If he does any infrastructure, then charge him to court.
You didn't need to go through the route of IPI going to do investigation. If you feel like, just like you said, if you feel he has committed an offense, you arrest him, you bring him before a court of
charge him to court. Yeah. That's what it is. That is what happens. But most often than not, we operate the same clients. But the fact is that we still have this military mentality in Nigeria, where everybody just believes that he's a lord unto himself and can do anything and he can trample on people's rights, as it were. They should be admitted to us. We cannot take our eyes off this.
If the guy details regarding exactly why
nobody has said anything. Nobody has said anything. Nobody has said anything. Nobody has told us anything.
And later they will say that the press is shouting freedom of press, you're infringing on freedom of expression.
It's not just the press. If it was a military person that was picked up like that, the press will also shout.
Yes.
It's our duty. If it's any other person, the press will always shout. But the fact is that this guy, nobody's giving us he has a family. Yes. He has a family, and they don't know where he is. Yeah. And anything can just happen to him. Before you know, he will just disappear, and that will be the end of it. So, since a particular department of security agency have been identified, it is not the onus is on them to debunk that irregularity. So let's wait and see what will happen.
Papers tomorrow we would have an update on that. Chris Kende, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day ahead.
All right. This is still Breakfast Central. We'll go on the break, and when we come back, there's more to look at. Stay with us. The embattled national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Abure, has been re-elected for a second term after receiving a unanimous vote from the delegates at a quietly held national convention despite opposition by the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress. According to the Deputy Governor of Abia State, Mr. Ikechukwu Emetu, who acted as chairman of the national convention which held in Nnewi, Anambra State, he announced Abure as winner and also reinstated other serving officers of the party.
The convention came on the heels of a supremacy fight between the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, and Labour Party, LP, in recent weeks now, with the Labour Centre insisting that Julius Abure quit office to allow for an independent committee to organize the convention at a yet-to-be-determined date. Now, the NLC had last week picketed the headquarters and secretariats of the party nationwide, an action the party declares forceful, illegal, and also criminal. We can confirm that there was no live transmission, and we mean no live transmission of the event on posts or even posts on any social media platforms or any form of press even available there except their own selected. But especially for a party usually more active than others on social media, this was quite odd. This makes one wonder if there is any truth to reports that journalists were barred from covering the event. So, very interesting now this. We also want to make sure that we mention that we reached out to 6 different LP members across states in Nigeria, but all of them, well, it would seem, declined from making an appearance here on News Central TV. I don't know what to make of this.
Very interesting. I mean, some of the reports as well, it would seem that there's fire on the mountain in the Labour Party. Some of the reports we've heard would be that NAN reported that's News Agency of Nigeria reported that the convention had been shifted on Tuesday from Umuahia to Anambra, right? And INEC has actually disowned this convention, and they're premising this on Section 82, sub 1 of the INEC Constitution, or of the INEC laws that empower or that require that you give 21 days notice, I believe, to INEC before you're holding conventions, congresses. So if Section 82, sub 1 of the electoral law provides for that, and you are not doing that, then according to them, this is it's invalid.
The question exactly, would this election or re-election be upheld? Is this something that would actually be put in the annals of history and say, yes, he is the real re-elected chairman? Big questions. Regarding the accusations of fraud from before now and whether that has actually been attended to, I think that is still in court currently, if I'm not mistaken. The details are very sketchy and one-sided at best, let's put it so. Whether this was engineered by the party or the Abure-led faction of the party, it remains to be seen. But it is a fact that there was no press, or rather very, very tacit reference to the press, whether they were being invited or not. This was impromptu, it would seem, and it seemed that it had its own predetermined destination where it was going.
And to also mention that the principal of the party was not a part of this convention. I mean, how do you hold a convention without Peter Obi being there? Exactly. It would be interesting to see what he says. I haven't checked X yet, but I should probably check to find out if he's released a statement concerning this convention. So yes, it would seem that there's some internal chaos. The INEC, of course, like I did mention earlier, has come out to say that they are disowning this Congress based off Section 82 sub 1 of the Electoral Act 2022. So I think what we just have to wait and see is what happens in the next few days, what becomes of the Labour Party. The Labour Party was seen as that party that would have been the formidable opposition against the current powers that be. But lately, the same thing that happens to other political parties is happening to them as well. Their ideologies, they're chipping away at the ideologies of the Labour Party, chipping away at the unity of the Labour Party. It's becoming just like other parties, like what Achebe referred to as things fall apart, the center cannot hold. The center no longer is able to hold. And like our guest did say earlier, many would argue that Peter Obi is the fulcrum upon which the Labour Party rests. And if you take away that pillar, that support, that fulcrum, the party falls apart. They would disagree. A number of them would disagree and tell you, there was Labour Party.
Can I amend that thought for just a bit?
Please
I'll amend that thought by saying he might be the fulcrum when it comes to personality, if you want to put a face behind that. But the truth about the Labour Party is that it was formed from the passion and the dissatisfaction of the citizens. We wanted a mouthpiece, or they wanted a mouthpiece. They wanted a party that represented them solely regarding everything that they have been talking about, what they wanted.
But did they have influence? Did people lean towards the Labour Party before Peter Obi jumped on the party?
Well, that's where you need a face. Yeah. That's where you need somebody to say, okay, I'm gathering people together and I'm going to be that mouthpiece. I'm going to be that face for you guys and be the person that you guys should perhaps maybe put into power to help you guys see your needs met eventually if elected into power. It's sad, however, that this is happening to the party. Many would say that they've lost hope. But the question is, where are you going to go after now? Where are you going to go? What party will you go to? Are you going to the APC, the PDP, which was perhaps maybe where people had been before, but after seeing that this was not meeting our needs, let's move to another party.
Let's move to APC and PDP, to be honest. Many have described both parties as two sides of the same coin, how you can go to bed in the APC and wake up in the PDP.
And if there is anything like a three-sided coin, that's what you're getting right now with what's happening inside of the Labour Party, it would seem.
Yeah, I mean, you can be a part of both. Ian Somwike has shown how you can, some would say he has shown how you can pledge, maybe not pledge allegiance, but you can be very much associated with both parties.
Exactly.
Of course, he is a card-carrying member of the People's Democratic Party working under the All Progressives Congress. So it's almost like, and some would say that he did frustrate the efforts of the PDP in Port Harcourt, in the River State,
very rare.
You know, and showed allegiance to the All Progressives Congress. So politics in Nigeria is quite interesting, and you cannot say that we're running democracy as it should be if we don't have a formidable opposition, which is something that, you know, we're struggling with. But we will keep talking about this. We'll keep shining the light on this, and you know, I mean, I wonder as well again what has become of the other political parties that we never.
It's very funny that we're not even mentioning these other political parties. It would seem like we only have 3 political parties in Nigeria with everything that's happening. However, we'll see this story progress as the week is ending already. So perhaps maybe before tomorrow, maybe we'll see exactly whether this will be upheld as Abure as the chairman re-elected.
All right, let's bring updates regarding peace building, and there's a Ghanaian delegation visit. We do have information that in a bid to learn from the model of the successful Borno model of peace building in Nigeria's northeast. We also have that a delegation from the Accra Initiative of Ghana visited the Borno State Deputy Governor in Maiduguri. The Borno model of peace building led to the surrender of over 160,000 insurgents. New Central's Maru Kirawa completes this report.
It is without fear of attack by insurgents. This is largely attributed to the Borno model, a persuasive peace-building initiative that encourages voluntary surrender by insurgents to embrace peace. The Accra Initiative delegation, comprising high-ranking officials from Ghana, are here in Borno State to study the Borno model.
It is better for us to learn, and we hope that by the time we go back, we'll be able to inculcate these steps in the methods in which we are addressing.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now let's share with you what Nigerians are saying as we head into the streets of social media. Our first story today: what can 200,000 naira do for you? Well, the CEO of Airpeace, Alan Onyema, in an interview did say that 200,000 naira, those earning 200,000 naira in Nigeria are living a much better life, or, you know, have a better quality of life or a better chance than those who are earning £2,000 in the UK. Let that sink in. Now let's see what Nigerians are saying about that. A lot of Nigerians have gone to social media to share their reactions. This is from General Oblak. He says, minimum wage in UK is £11.4. Now, 11.4 times 9 hours is equal to £102.6. 102.6 times 30 monthly, that's assuming that they're working up to 30 days, is £3,078. He then says, okay, let's go to conversion, and you see that someone in the UK, after their tax, will comfortably give you 200k in Nigeria every month if he's not a reckless spender there. Moving away from General O Black, we have Nigerians are highly unpatriotic. This is from Harmless. Okay, this is in reference to our dollar tweet. We'll take this one much later. Let's go to the next tweet. This one says, the question is, who's even earning 200k in Nigeria? The money that can't sustain a whole family for 2 weeks, The fact is that 100K can't buy family monthly feeds. Not below, my family as a case study. So he's using his family as a case study. Now, our next tweet is from, this is from the Great Kenny. Let's move on quickly to the next tweet. Eric Okafor says, rich people glorifying mediocrity is a wild. $2,000 monthly salary is quite low in the US. I want to believe, okay, yeah, it is in the US, but not as unfortunate as 200,000 naira in Nigeria. But this is, of course, in comparison to 2,000 pounds in the UK and 200,000 naira in Nigeria. So I'm bringing that choice before you. 2,000 pounds in the United Kingdom, 200,000 naira here in Nigeria every month. Even though I know you are not really like the 200,000 naira gang. What are your thoughts as quickly as possible?
Well, I will say that personally, I went to the market, no, not market, supermarket. So we do monthly shopping every time. By the time we go to the supermarket, we normally would spend 100,000 naira at the supermarket, yeah? But only recently we spent 185,000 naira, and these are basic things that we actually need. These are not luxuries. So you can imagine what 200,000 naira is like, personally to me, or what the average person out there is actually using 200 or who's getting 200,000 naira. Question is, who exactly is getting 200,000 naira in Nigeria? If you're getting 200,000 naira, trust me, it's quite a big deal. What's the minimum wage now? Would you remind me what the minimum wage is now? What people are getting as minimum wage currently?
I'm not even quite sure at this point because it's meant to be like 30,000 naira.
Exactly.
And then there's people talking about, that's why Nelson is pushing for more, but we're not yet there. Well, to be honest, I think I can totally understand those sentiments. I don't know how to react to it. But yes, in case you're just tuning in, this tweet by Wisdom Ekong sort of briefly explains. It says, EPCO said, anyone earning 2,000 pounds in London is a pauper. And if you're earning 200,000 in Nigeria, you're better off because you can hire a maid, a driver. And I agree with him completely. I don't agree with him though, in this particular one. London, only monthly house rent is 2,000 to 5,000 pounds. 2,000 pounds may not be enough for house rent, not to talk of other bills. In Nigeria, if you're single or married with few children, 200,000 naira is a big money. I don't agree with the driver and maid. Have you seen how much drivers are charging now? No. Drivers are charging within, say, 80 to 100,000. So if you're paying driver 80 to 100,000, you're paying your maid. How much do you have left? How much do you have to feed? But I would think that these numbers can only make sense when is it? Anyway, I shouldn't say that. There are some people who this is their reality. But let us know what your thoughts are on Twitter at News Central TV. Do you think that 200,000 naira is enough to be able to power you and your family? If you're a single person or a married person, let us know what your thoughts are on social media. But as we come to the end of Breakfast Central, let's share with you what's happening later today. Later today at 12 p.m. West African time, we have News Central Now.
And of course, at 5 p.m., you want to join us for Report Desk Africa.
And at 10 p.m. West African time, join us for Nigeria Tonight. Thank you very much for joining us on today's broadcast. We're back again, same time, 7 a.m. prompt tomorrow, 7 a.m. West African time. My name is Emodi.
My name is Mazino. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.